well, TPC breakfast, I should say. All right, let's talk about the coming elections in Edo State. The Independent National Electoral Commission has confirmed its readiness for the upcoming Edo State governorship election. It's scheduled to hold on September the 21st. Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, made this announcement during a stakeholders meeting held in Benin City, where he urged all political parties and candidates to ensure a peaceful election process. Professor Yakubu reveals that INEC had completed most of the needed preparations for the elections. He also provided updates on the voter registration process, revealing that in Edo State there are 2,629,025 registered voters. And that's what we bring up now with Achike Chude, political analyst, who joins us via Zoom. Thanks a lot for joining us at this time. So what are your thoughts on the state of INEC's readiness amidst the peculiarities in Edo State ahead of these polls?
Well, INEC's readiness, they can speak, for themselves. They are in a better position to make that declaration about their state of readiness. But what I believe that civil society, will do is what they have always done, and that is to encourage the INEC, to engage the INEC and other bodies that are also important in running that election, especially after INEC. Of course, we'll be talking about police personnel, or security, and so all of these things. Of course, we know that the preparation is not just that has to be done by INEC. INEC obviously is the agency responsible for elections, so they will take the lead, and then with the adequate support of the security agencies, to ensure security, to ensure voter turnout confidence. Then of course with the active participation of civil society organizations, the observers in the field, all of these things go into having proper elections, provided that the processes are followed leading up to this. So I think INEC speaks well about their state of readiness for the election. They've had time to prepare. They've had many months to prepare. And again, we cannot, from that perspective, when it comes to the issue of logistics, some of these things that have been the reoccurring decimal, in INEC over the years, we do not expect any failure in that direction. Yes, over the years we've had an improvement in terms of logistics, the turnout of their personnel, to the polling units. I think we've had a rise in the number of, for the period of when it comes to early arrivals. There's been an improvement over the last few elections across the country. But so once in a while, a lot still needs to be desired. A lot is left to be desired. And that means that INEC, when it comes to issue of logistics and preparation, getting to the polling units earlier. So we're talking about maybe 90-95% success rate at that level.
So you talked about the fact that INEC has had time to prepare. Despite that fact, are you really certain that they might have learned their lessons from the last general elections?
I can say, it is said that the sweetness of the pudding is in the testing. So words are cheap and it's the easiest thing to say. But we need to learn to walk the talk. And in the past, they have not exactly been very good at that. We've always had gaps that we feel that if they had worked assiduously to closing those gaps, that they would have. Yes, there have been some successes here and there, but I think there is still a lot that is left to be desired. Of course, you cannot have a perfect situation. I'm not sure that when human beings are concerned, that you can talk about perfection, but you can talk about degrees of adherence, to your vision or to your rules, and that's what we are talking about. INEC, don't forget that INEC has often made promises to Nigerians and then falling short of those promises. So we hope, and then every failure should be a learning curve to avoid the particular instances that led to these failures. And so by the time you begin to cover all of these failures through, subsequent, better action, then you see that the level of failure, the degree of imperfection will reduce. So I hope that that they have, because INEC has been involved in all manners of engagement with stakeholders. The INEC has constant interactions with journalists, with media, the INEC Media Pally. They also have the INEC Civil Society Pally, where views and observations are made by all sides to these discussions and engagements. And then INEC, they always make notes about what they need to do to improve on this. And we hope that they will be able to do that. There have been improvements in some areas. Issue of disability, INEC does not joke with that. They have always ensured that that more advantage is given to people with disabilities, the older people. These things are being implemented, but there's much more to elections than this, obviously.
Right, and beyond INEC's preparedness, let's also look at how much of evolution that campaign seasons have recorded this time around in Edo State. Are you particularly surprised, or how has it been? Are we having a robust campaign, from the actors in Edo State?
Campaigns that are marred with violence and threats and fear cannot be, campaigns that want to beat our chest and say we are doing it better. I think what I've seen over the years is a decline in our democratic ethos, and I will tell you this with a practical, example. The police is deploying about 35,000 police personnel, and they said apart from that, about 80 other, security personnel will be also involved in one way or the other during the election. This is a country that is rife with violence and insecurity all over the country. You are deploying that number to just one state for the purpose of election. It simply tells you that the politicians, and I think they are supposed to be the major beneficiaries of elections, because they derive the benefit of victories in such elections. But they are the ones that, for me, the greatest obstacle to proper democratization of the Nigerian political space. And if you look at the deployment of these police people and then other security personnel, why are they being deployed? They are being deployed because of the activities of bad state political actors, and these are the politicians. So that is putting a lot of stress on the country's on INEC's finances, putting a lot of stress, even with regards to the voters, because there's so much tension, in the air. That you need assurances from heavy security presence to get the people to come out to come and vote. And then when you have too much concentration of security personnel in an election, some people have also argued that it tends to drive voters away because it creates an atmosphere of fear. So we can't start from, each time we're having off-cycle election in the state, you are deploying 40,000 policemen. It simply tells you that the state actors, non-state and state actors, are working in ways that are diametrically opposed to the basis for having an election in the first place. Elections must be conducted in an atmosphere that is devoid of fear and tension, intimidation, and harassment. And that is not what we have seen in Edo State. Of course, we know that there have been some killings here and there, and pockets of violence in different parts of Edo State, all for the purpose of attaining political power, for the purpose of working for the good of the people. People who will do anything, resort to all forms of violence to be able to get to power, cannot obviously be people who are ready to do the work of the people and create a very good environment for progress and development in the state. And that is my fear, not just in Edo State, with what is happening all over the country.
Are you optimistic that despite all that's happening in Edo State regarding campaigns and insecurity, and as somehow somewhat marred some of these campaigns, do you think that the elections will be free of violence despite also the deployment of over 30,000 police personnel for the exercise?
I don't know. You know, sometimes there's this tension going into elections, and then you just expect the worst will happen. And then the election comes and it goes, and there's relative peace. And that's what we've noticed. We had that in Kogi State, where I went, for election observation under the Nigeria Society Situation Room. We saw that in Edo State, where I was also. In Anambra State too. There was so much talk of violence, unknown gunmen, and all that. And then the election came and went, and then it went peacefully. So the threat of violence going into elections really is not matched by the relative level of peace that we see actually during the election itself. So I think maybe from that perspective, one can talk about this election with some level of optimism that perhaps it will work out well in terms of having a more peaceful environment. And I think that is going to happen. I think from experience, in some other places where I went to observe, I think ultimately the saber rattling and the threats are not really matched by action on election day.
Achike, right, I still wanted to address a portion of my earlier question. I don't think you addressed that, talking about the quality of campaigns that we are seeing. The APC, of course, is yet again in the race. Before now, the APC, PDP, but now we are looking at, the entrance of the Labour Party. Tell us what you think about, the quality of campaigns so far, especially how issue-based they have been for the benefit of the electorate.
Good, you're being more specific now, because I think I tried to address it and also situate
Talked
your
about
question.
security, yes.
Yeah. Also situate your question in the context of the insecurity in the state. And what I was just trying to say exactly, it's like when you talk about general economic development and politics, and people say, look, the government needs to provide an enabling environment. So we must have an enabling environment for businesses to thrive, and therefore, businesses to thrive. You must also have an enabling environment for proper election and quality election and campaigning to take place. So when you have an environment that is filled with some level of dangerous rhetorics and violence and threats of violence, the quality of elections and will go down in terms of what the candidates have to present to the people, because you're always looking behind your shoulder. You don't know what is going to happen. But again, the question is also good in the sense that we have also often talked about the fact that political parties, usually partyism in Nigeria is usually devoid of strong ideological roots, and orientation. And so, it's not that I'm going to build roads for you. How are you going to build the roads? It's not that I'm going to talk about. The politicians have a way. They can even tell you that they are going to put air conditioning in the sun, or whatever it is, and but the question people should be asking, okay, fantastic, wonderful, you want to put air conditioners in the sun or in the sky or whatever, but where are you going to get the money from? How are you going to get the money from? You look at the level of indebtedness of Edo State, for instance, and all the states in the country. And so you have a state that is indebted to the tune of maybe around, let's just say, 2 trillion naira. And they are promising that they are going to carry out projects worth 5 trillion naira. And people are not asking questions because they must know that it is unreasonable. So they are not holding the feet of the politicians to the fire. They are not taking them, to task. They are not holding them accountable for the promises, for the words that they make. And so it's not just about, quality politicking, but quality followership is also critical. Because when you have a followership that is informed and enlightened and that is ready to confront, in a democratic manner, their political leadership and all they claim, then you are going to have an increase in the quality of discourse by the politicians, because they are going to be forced to do that. So that quality is not what we are seeing. And I think the only time we tend to have it is when debates, governorship debates are organized, and there you have a bit of what the candidates, want to do. But it is difficult to follow the ideological orientation, where they are coming from, where they are going, and how they intend to achieve what they have promised the people.
All right, Chike Chude, thanks a lot for your contributions on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.